We're live. Well, we're
Perfect.
live. Anyone else watching
Perfect.
this is not live, but
I'm
we
live,
live.
living.
We live, Caleb. We live.
Woke up
Ladies
this
and
morning and I was
gentlemen,
like, I'm live.
Caleb, you're on this side of the grass.
Dude, what's not alive?
What's not alive?
The squirrel that I saw get hit on the way to work this morning.
Uh,
I have a 3-minute drive to work. It's not that far.
uh
And this poor thing was just minding his own business, crossing the street in front of the taco place, and all of a sudden started freaking out. Didn't get out of the way soon enough, and there he goes.
Yeah.
And
Do I go that way? That way. That way? That way.
dude,
Dead.
frantic squirrels.
I wonder about it sometimes, like how animals, when animals were created, invented, whatever, like it wasn't built into them to understand technology. So birds keep on, like, there's countries that are now dismantling wind farms, these huge wind turbines,
Yeah.
because birds are getting absolutely, like, demolished by the wind turbines.
I don't know that humans are hardwired to understand technology, because there's plenty of
Either.
analogies that yeah, I don't know that we have a great grip either.
That's fair.
Dude,
Fair.
so
I'm not going
Liam,
to argue with that.
uh for all listening,
Ladies
I
and
have a
gentlemen,
3-year-old.
hold on. Caleb White. People don't know who you are. Ladies and gentlemen, Caleb White, the Caleb White official, coming to
Hello.
us from, I don't know, are you in a different state at least? Like, can it be cool like that? Like, are you in Minnesota or something?
I'm in Davidson, North Carolina, which is
Ah,
essentially a different state if you ask anybody who lives here.
dude, it's one of the wealthiest towns in the entire state of North Carolina.
Yeah, and most people who live here like to let you know it. It's a very interesting little swath of the population. The best people are the people who live in Cornelius, right on the line,
Yeah.
and
And
they,
act like they're Davidson?
oh my goodness, yes, it's
Ah.
the best. They're like, I don't pay the taxes you do, but I'm good enough to be you. And you're like, cool,
Ah.
cool.
Interesting. All
I'm
right.
living in Davidson in half a duplex on very subsidized rent, because I have friends of friends are very nice people. So
Love
I
it.
don't fit in around here. Let's put it that way.
I have felt that way most of my life, wherever
Yeah,
I've gone.
yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, speaking of squirrels, not to tangent, but Liam, my 3-year-old, for all those who have
Yeah.
not met him,
Yeah.
uh, his friend Taj gave him an acorn at school on Wednesday,
Uh-huh.
and we still have the acorn.
Okay.
It's next Tuesday.
Yeah.
I have not left the room without the acorn being in tow, because it's like this thing is worth the original Bitcoin. Like this acorn is prime real estate right now, and it's if I lose the acorn, I don't have him tonight, but if I lose the acorn, he'll probably
Uh,
disown me as a father. Like, that's where we're at.
let's imagine this scene. So he's at preschool. Taj says, "Hey, Liam, I got you something." Like, was there like a presentation involved, or was he just like, "Here, have this acorn," and walked away? Or did Taj build it up as, "Dude, you want to have the greatest thing I've ever found," and then present the acorn to
Well,
Liam?
so here's what happened. I picked him up from school and they were out on the playground. And Taj
Uh-huh.
meets me at the fence and he says, "Oh, Liam's daddy, I got this acorn for Liam, but you need to keep it safe." And so Taj handed me the acorn, went and told Liam he handed me said acorn. And then Liam comes out of the gate demanding that his acorn be handed to him.
Yeah, give me
So
the acorn.
I've been assigned keeper of the acorn, but the acorn is certainly not mine.
Oh,
It
but it's
certainly belongs to him, to Liam. He yeah, it's his acorn, and he'll let everybody know.
wow.
That
I
story
guess it's
has
kind of,
no moral point, but
it's like when you put something in a safe deposit box at a bank, like they're overseeing your valuable, but it's not their property. And you can like visit it.
yeah,
You have access to it,
yeah,
but
totally. Totally. I mean, it's
Now,
valuable to a 3-year-old.
would you ever use this to your advantage, such as it's time to go to bed, Liam, and he's pitching a fit, and you say, if you want your acorn to stay in the room with you, you need to go to bed and relax, or dad's going to take the acorn and put it in his room. Like, would you use it as a bartering item? Are you that kind of
Um,
dad?
I try really hard not to be, especially when it's small, solid things that could end up in his digestive system by morning if I let them in his room.
Yeah.
Uh,
It doesn't stay in his room at night?
absolutely not. And night one, that was a fight to the death. It was it was not well received, but I told him we bought these dinosaur eggs from Le Target, otherwise known as Target to the
Yeah.
Americans, and these little dino eggs that he digs up, and the dinosaurs are this big,
Yeah.
and so the dinosaurs don't sleep in the bed either. And so right now, if I wasn't going to lose service, I'd pull you inside and show you, but there are 4 dinosaurs, 2 on either side, and the dinosaurs, in my absence, are keeper of the acorn that is placed in the middle. There's a little kingdom happening.
Was
Um,
this Liam's idea?
absolutely,
That's amazing.
100%.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
there's a monarchy forming in my own household, and I'm not in charge. Let's put it
Mm.
that way. Yeah,
Mm.
but that's okay. That's the kind of
Wow.
parent I am, Mike. I just got to make sure
Yeah.
he's fed and gets enough sleep, and anything else goes.
Dude, dude, we've been knowing each other, Caleb, for a hot minute.
Long time.
We've probably, I mean, 20 2014, like 9 years,
At
I
least,
guess.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
20.
maybe 10.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
coming up on
wild.
a decade.
I know. That's so wild. I want to have your sister on. I had her. It was like an inch away from her doing an episode, and then she tapped out.
Oh, she'll
But
do one. She'll
okay,
do one.
one of
Yeah,
these days. One of these
yeah,
days,
yeah.
because she was going to talk about going to Africa and that whole experience, but
Ooh,
then she tapped and said, "I'm not ready to talk about it on a podcast."
that's fair.
Maybe. So
That's
either
fair.
she'll figure out how to do it, or she'll pick something else. Because we have
Yeah,
lots of moments that make us. You know that, Caleb?
absolutely.
Of course you know that.
You want to know a minor moment that made me that's not the prime moment that we're about to talk about?
Okay.
That moment when me
This
and
is a
you
bonus moment.
this is a bonus moment at the beginning. Uh, this is the dessert before the appetizer. That moment when fresh out of staying at a budget inn, uh, me and you in
Oh
Wilmington
gosh.
decided that on our way home in February, March, it was not warm outside.
I didn't remember it was that cold.
It was freezing. That's the only thing I remember.
Ah,
We decided to park illegally in those
we sure
private
did.
parking spaces by the beach.
We sure
Get out of
did.
the car. Did we have a change of clothes? Not really. Um,
Rip our shirts off.
strip down and fly. We were probably out of the car a minute and a half total. Flew down the beach, jumped in the freezing cold water, looked at each other, said we did it, and back in the car for a 4 5 hour drive.
Dude, we
Premium.
stayed at a legit Roach motel.
It was disgusting.
It was probably like $14 a night. But you know what?
What a great trip.
It was a great trip.
Good times.
That's when I was talking at a school one day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember which school, but I did speak at Laney High School in Wilmington once, and that's where Michael Jordan went. Does that sound familiar?
I was about to say I know that name.
Yeah.
I
So
just
I think
watched that
that's,
movie, The Air, that they came out with.
yeah.
Oh
Haven't
my
watched it
gosh,
yet.
what a film! What a film!
Yeah, I gotta watch it.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
Caleb, it
highly
is due
recommended.
time. We have to get into your moment.
Let's do it.
That's what the people are here for. That's what they paid big bucks to be here for, a moment that made someone. So you said that this happened when you were 27,
27.
and
27. Yep.
let's capture for just 30 seconds to a minute, what's life like for you leading up to this moment? Just capture a
Yeah.
snapshot of your life.
Leading up to this moment, I had been married for a few years at that juncture.
Uh-huh.
Um, and my then wife was 11 months and 30 days pregnant. So we were about to have a baby, which might give away what we're about to talk about. But the had been getting ready, reading all the books, preparing to be a
Did you
dad.
say 11
Um,
months pregnant?
yeah.
She was 2 months overdue.
Oh, not 11 months. That's a long time.
I know.
Uh, I was like, yeah, you're pregnant for a year, right, Mike? Um, no, she was the day before this moment, she was 1 day from giving birth. There we go. Whatever your
There we
timeline
go.
is.
Got it.
And 11 months. Jesus Christ. Um, uh, I was working down in South Charlotte in coffee, managing coffee shop by day, learning how
Mm-hmm.
to be a dad by night. I
Mm-hmm.
had read all the books, uh,
Mm-hmm.
prepping, trying to be not as nervous as maybe I should have been,
Mm-hmm.
and just getting ready for a different chapter of life. And
Mm-hmm.
I honestly didn't. I liked what I was doing career wise at that point. Um,
Mm-hmm.
wasn't sure that it was good for me long term, and actually that job, not because of anything we're going to talk about in this, but COVID hit 6 weeks later, right? And so
Yeah.
that job I actually left, and it ended up being a really good decision to leave at that juncture, for completely unrelated reasons, but was already feeling unsettled in that. So feeling unsettled in what was, and a little anxious about what was to come, first
Mm-hmm.
child, kind of
Mm-hmm.
crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was it was a
Got you.
lot, but that was it.
All right.
Yeah, man.
Well, Caleb, let's dive in. You
Yeah,
you let us have it. I'm just going to let you talk for a couple minutes, and then I'll start
cool, man.
interjecting, and we'll dig this and pick this apart and see what we can learn from it. Because
Absolutely.
everybody can grow so much from listening to other people's experience, how they got through it, the mistakes they made, the good decisions they made, the things they learned. So I'm
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah, so so my now ex-wife and I were pregnant, and we were she was, you know, a year and a half into her pregnancy, or however long that takes. And um and it was the a couple days before he was due. So we knew we were having a boy. We knew his head was measuring at the 100th percentile, but his overall body was pretty normal. He wasn't a huge baby; he was just a giant head. Um,
Wow.
and so, a couple of days before his actual due date, so his due date was February 3rd. On the first, we were walking around Lowe's, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We go into labor. Um, We waited out for a few hours. Around 10 o'clock that night, went into the hospital, got sent home. Um, nervous first time. I think we went too early, I guess, for whatever
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah.
We end up going back around 10 o'clock the next day. So
Mm-hmm.
February 2nd, around 10 a.m. Um, at this point, where she's 18 hours into labor or so, and we go to the hospital. Um, So fast forward 24 hours from then, February 3rd, uh, 11 o'clock in the morning, 43 hours into labor, they call in what they consider an emergency C-section. Now, I don't know what your definition of an emergency is, Mike, but if I make
Mm-hmm.
an emergency call to the fire department at this moment, it better not take them 43 hours to tend to my emergency, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe some negligence on that, but all that to say, uh, by that point, he was at risk of infection and all these things, and there were so many things that could go wrong at this point. And up until now, we had no complications in the pregnancy. Everything had been fine.
Okay.
Um, so they start prepping her for a C-section, right? And I won't go into all the details of that, just to respect her privacy. But
Sure.
they sit me in this little room with like all the new syringes and the gloves, like the supplies closet, basically next to the surgery, the OR, whatever you call it.
Right. Right.
And I'm sitting there probably for half an hour, which
Uh-huh.
again, the definition of emergency really needs to get tweaked here. But
Yeah.
finally, they call me back in, and uh, things are, to say hectic is a understatement. So
Yeah.
I go behind her, watching the whole thing. Um, I wanted to fully be there and experience the whole thing, right? Unforeseen. Didn't think it would go to this, but I wanted to see the whole thing, right? So
Mm-hmm.
everything goes down. Her body had not reacted great to the anesthesia, the epidural,
Mm-hmm.
and so her fever had actually spiked to 108 by the time surgery started.
Oh my gosh.
So now it's an emergency,
Yeah.
and 108. I'm worried about her and thinking the baby's fine, but then they pull him out, and I step around because we had said that I was going to cut the cord, right?
Okay.
So I step around to get ready, like the doc had prepped me to get the scissors, cut the cord, and I just feel a hand on my right shoulder stop me, and one of the other nurses, and she was like, "Nope," and just immediately they pick him up, and he is blue, which isn't super abnormal, but like
Right.
a deep blue and stiff as a statue. It was like he was made
Uh,
of porcelain. They cut the cord really quick and rush him over, um, probably 6 feet away from me,
yeah.
to a little table, hook him up, hook his heart rate up, and I'm just watching this thing. At this point, it's dawning on me that something has gone horribly wrong. Right
Yeah.
now, silver lining, he was at high risk of meconium, which is basically when you uh you eat your own excrement in the womb after the water is
Oh.
broken. Right, he was at risk for that, but he actually avoided that infection. The reason her fever had spiked was part the anesthesia, part that starting to infect her own womb, right? So there was all this stuff going on with her body at this point. But
Oh my
he
gosh.
he had decided, and I can say this flippantly now, he had decided that breathing was just not on the priority list. So he had not taken a breath to swallow any of that, avoiding infection, but causing a load of other things, right? So they rush him over about 6 feet away from me, right? And he's on this operating table, and they hook him up, and I see two numbers.
Yeah.
His oxygen, 0 to 100, it was oscillating between 0 and 5%.
Okay.
Should have been 95 to 100.
Right.
The other number is his heart rate. Now, I had read enough and like I had dug into the literature enough to know what to expect and understood that, okay, even though my resting heart rate might be in the 50s, his resting heart rate, if everything's okay, his heart rate's still going to be like 140, 160. That's normal.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
His heart rate was 220, up and down, low 200s. So
Yeah.
his body's freaking out. He has no oxygen going through his system. This happens, I don't know, it could have been 3 minutes he was on that operating table. It could have been half an hour. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Still, I've played this back in my memory so many times. No idea how long he was on this table.
Right.
All I know is all of a sudden they grab a tube and start trying to get him a breathing tube down. And all I hear, and my memory's spotty, like trauma does that to you, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I say trauma, small t. But they start trying to get the breathing tube down, and I hear his trachea is too small. We can't get the tube in. And then the door opens, the bed gets wheeled out, and we don't hear anything for 6 hours. All we hear for the next 6 hours, Mike, is we're trying to get him stable. We'll give you an update when we see any progress. Now, any progress from the statement, his trachea is too small, we can't get him a breathing tube, and he's not breathing. It 6 hours worth of no progress is a long time, right?
Yeah, no crap.
Yeah. So within that 6 hours, he has 11 minor electromagnetic seizures in his brain due to lack of oxygen, and one physical, like you would picture in the movies, like body tremoring, freaking out, one full-on seizure.
Yeah.
And he's a few hours old.
Mm-hmm.
So they wheel him in after, finally they come back to us, and they wheeled him in after 6 hours,
Mm-hmm.
and he, and I'll say this, and then I'm going to go back a couple hours because that's really the pivotal moment.
Mm-hmm.
They wheel him in at after about 6:30 that night. So he was born at 12:01. They wheel him in at 6:30. Had just told us that they need to airlift him about 20 miles to the only hospital between here and Houston that has the technology that can keep him alive through the night.
And where was that?
Thankfully, we were in Matthews, North Carolina.
Yeah. Yeah.
The only two hospitals at that time
Yeah.
on the East Coast all the way to Houston
Uh-huh.
is the Charlotte Novant NICU.
Oh, wow.
And they had the right bed for him. Basically what they were doing, and other hospitals have adopted this, but they
Wow.
essentially put him on ice.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna fast forward just a little bit, and then I'll
Yeah.
come back. So, long story short, he ended up being in the NICU the entire month of February,
Uh-huh.
and the Sunday after we got out of the NICU was when the NBA canceled their games because of it during COVID, and then the world shut down.
Uh-huh.
Right. So I actually ended up having the first 8 months of his life with him at home every
Uh-huh.
day, and it was
Uh-huh.
incredible. And
Wow.
he there was a 43% chance that he would not, because of everything he went through, there was a 43% chance that he would not have cerebral palsy.
Okay.
Or I'm sorry, there's a 43% chance that he would make it through the night.
Okay.
Out of that 43%,
Uh-huh.
there was a 7% chance that he would not have cerebral palsy.
Okay.
That's what they've seen when this happens to babies, that if they live, odds are they're going to have cerebral palsy.
Got it.
I had a conversation with his teacher a couple weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
and she shared with me that it's too early to tell because he's only 3, but there's a
Mm-hmm.
really high chance that he has an IQ that's off the charts and that he might have a photographic, if not eidetic memory.
Mm-hmm.
He's not only fine, his vocabulary is through the roof for his age. He's an incredible kid, so considerate, so kind, so sweet. It's
Mm-hmm.
not only that he made it through all this, and he is a warrior.
Yeah.
His name, Liam Mitchell, means strong-willed warrior of the divine,
Mm-hmm.
and he has come through that name time and time again. But all that to say, at the end of the day, he's fine. But the moment that shifted things for me,
Mm-hmm.
I had, at this point in my life, I had long since been, uh, and I don't mean any disrespect to people who believe this, but I'd long since been disenchanted of the idea that, like, yeah, Noah's Ark had 2x2, and that is exactly what happened, and that, he probably had a African zebra, and like the Australian birds flew over, and he probably had a couple of English bulldogs as well on the ark,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and the fairy tale Christianity stories of God
Mm-hmm.
that you grow up hearing in the Bible Belt. I'd long since been uh in a place where I didn't hold those as truth.
Okay.
But I had never understood when people question the goodness of the divine. Whatever words you
Mm-hmm.
want to give for the divine,
Mm-hmm.
I'd always been confused by people who questioned, why did this happen? I was a good person. I've never
Why
understood
does
that.
God let bad things happen to good people?
Yeah, absolutely. Um,
God's got it out for me.
mhm.
God's ignoring me. Or worse, God's got it out for me. Even worse than ignoring me.
But part
Yeah.
and parcel of that is I've also always had trouble understanding, or really not only understanding intellectually, but physically being present and being grateful for the present moment. I'm a very futuristic thinker, very strategic, I'm always thinking what's next, how can I arrange things, what do I need to do to set up things for the future, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I have trouble being present. Always have.
Mm-hmm.
Um and about 4 hours into Liam being in the NICU, or being in the operating room, them trying to get him stable, about 3 4 hours into that, I walked out in the hall because I just couldn't stand it. Like, I've been pacing back and forth in this little tiny hospital room for forever, and I finally walked out in the hall, and my dad comes around the corner, meets me out there, and he just starts praying,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't care if you're praying to X, Y, and Z God or whatever you want to call it. If you're putting if your heart is truly yearning for something and entering into conversation with that which is beyond you,
Mm-hmm.
that's real. That's real.
Mm-hmm.
And he just asks. He said, in his words, he uses the term God, and he says, God, we don't know what's happening, why it's
Mm-hmm.
happening. We have no
Mm-hmm.
knowledge right now,
Mm-hmm.
and the only thing we know is that we're scared.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just asking you for whatever small sign you can give us that you're in this with us,
Mm-hmm.
that we are not alone, and that things, not necessarily that Liam's going to be okay, but in the grander scheme, things are going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you can do to comfort us in that, just give us that peace. And
Mm-hmm.
I kid you not, we're hospital rooms over here, we're down an L-shaped hallway, and that entire hallway is one window.
Mm-hmm.
And we're looking out. We're in the middle of a city,
Mm-hmm.
and we're looking out into the small little patch of woods that the hospital has to keep there to keep bees alive or whatever, right? This
Mm-hmm.
small little patch, it could barely be considered a forest.
Mm-hmm.
And two deer at that exact moment calmly walk out into the forest and lock eyes with us on the
Mm-hmm.
third story of the building, staring out this window. Lock eyes with us for 8, 10 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
They don't just break contact and start standing around like they were stupid and weren't there for a reason. They
Mm-hmm.
come out of the woods, lock eyes with us, turn around, and go back in.
Stop.
And that's all. That is more than I could have asked for in that moment. And for some reason, call it coincidence, call it whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
for some reason, when we reached out to that which is beyond us,
Mm-hmm.
um, that which should not care about us at all,
Mm-hmm.
answered in the best possible way.
Mm-hmm.
And it pulled me. I almost can't put verbiage to why this tied the line, but
Mm-hmm.
it pulled me so deeply into the present moment
Mm-hmm.
that I was just immediately grateful for even having the opportunity to experience this thing, right? If
Yeah.
he had if the doctor, obviously it would have been an impossible situation, but if the doctor had walked up to us the moment later and said that he
Yeah.
didn't make it,
Yeah.
that moment right there prepared me for whatever was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because in that moment when you surrender there,
Mm-hmm.
not every time, right? Just because you surrender something doesn't mean it's going to work out in your favor.
Right.
But it wasn't, all things considered, it wasn't that long later until they finally started giving us updates of, hey, just letting y'all know he's still alive.
Yeah.
And so, point being, and we can go wherever you want with this, but for the next 4.5 weeks, I spent 14 hours a day by his bedside.
Mm-hmm.
Everything fell into place. Um, we actually, a good friend, Bill Hamill, he's one of the leading infant heart experts in the country, but
Mm-hmm.
he worked at the hospital
Mm-hmm.
where we got airlifted to.
Mm-hmm.
And so even the 8 hours a day, 8, 10 hours a day, we weren't allowed to be back there by his bedside.
Mm-hmm.
Bill would pop in at 3 a.m. and shoot me texts, shoot me pictures of little updates, just saying that he was okay.
What a gift.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Um, and I've never felt more present
Yeah.
than those 14-hour days. They were long. Um,
Yeah.
I've still probably once a month I look back at pictures
Mm-hmm.
of those moments when he was in the hospital bed and everything, and it's just incredible to see how far he's come. But
Mm-hmm.
I I didn't realize how unpresent I was in my life before that,
Yeah.
and after that, I've truly realized that the present moment, and this sounds cliche, but the present moment, this right here, me and you talking right now,
Uh-huh.
is all that exists. Period. Simultaneously with that, if you strip time away, everything else exists in this present moment and all of the other present moments. And
Mm-hmm.
there's we could go on for 3 hours about the intricacies of what I just said, but the reality is that the past is gone, the future is not yet. And the
Uh-huh.
beautiful thing about it is whatever it is that's beyond all of us,
Mm-hmm.
there's this statement in the Hebrew scriptures, of that wisdom literature. Some people call it the Christian Bible, but within that entire literature collection, even the things that didn't necessarily make it into the canon, the beautiful thing, there's this contrast. There's a statement where it talks about evil or the embodiment of evil,
Mm-hmm.
and it says uh, it this evil was, is not, and is coming. So evil exists, that which is geared towards destruction
Mm-hmm.
exists in anxiety from the fear and anxiety about what's happened in the past that stimulates action from an anxious state into the future.
Mm.
But when you exist in that future past anxious realm, it completely pulls you out of the present moment.
Right.
It says the exact same thing about the divine or the embodiment of the divine, and it says the only difference is it says he was, is, and is coming.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever is good, whatever is capable of living eternally into the future is also
Mm-hmm.
that which pulls you into the present most readily.
Mm.
And
That's
I've
good.
lived in that. I sing Liam this song every single night. My dad sang it to me when I was little, growing up.
Mm-hmm.
I have it tattooed on my
Mm-hmm.
back. But the last
Mm-hmm.
line of the song is that the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the
Mm-hmm.
light of his glory and his grace.
Mm-hmm.
And when you really sink into the present moment, I truly believe that all of the anxiety, all of the fluff that comes along in life, everything that uh, makes us not want to get out of bed in the morning, but also prevents us from falling asleep at night,
Mm-hmm.
all of that disappears when you're fully sucked into what is here and what is now. And I'd never experienced it before those two deer locked eyes. And they pulled me in, and I feel like I've been here ever since,
Yeah.
in the best way.
Do you think that this has got me very curious about something? The whole idea of coincidence. Do you think that there would be an argument that someone could make that would say, yeah, but it was all a coincidence that the
Hmm,
deer walked out of the woods, looked at you. It was just a coincidence. You could have been standing at the snack machine when they walked out and walked back in. It was
sure.
just a coincidence. Do you think it's almost like it's a state of mind or a state of being where you can see. I mean, you could say it was just a coincidence that there was a beautiful sunset. Well, it's just, the
Sure.
way that the chemicals are in the air, refracting light, and who cares?
Yeah,
Like even seeing beauty or seeing things that feel purposeful,
yeah,
it just seems like it's a state of mind, so that someone that could call that coincidence would just as easily be able to see it as not a coincidence if they just had a different perspective. I don't know. I don't know where I'm
absolutely.
going with all that.
I think I think it is. It's a if you have your eyes open, you will see things that those who have their eyes closed do not.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a shifting of perspective. Like today, I won't go into detail, but I had a conversation with somebody 2 days ago about a fairly big deal of something that's happened in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And like it has some pretty significant implications.
Mm-hmm.
And I had never had a conversation about that before. And this happens to her. And it was a great thing, but this happens to her. And literally this morning, um, I'm listening to the first time I've listened to a podcast before or since having that conversation on Sunday night. This morning, the podcast, 30 minutes in, they start talking about this exact thing for 15 minutes straight.
Huh.
Now, that could be coincidence,
Yeah.
and I could be like, oh, whatever. Or I could shift my perspective just a bit and say, okay, I had that conversation, never had anything even related to that before. They
Yeah.
talk about this exact same thing happening in somebody they know's life.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to pay attention to this. Maybe I
Mm-hmm.
need to ask her again about it, how she
Mm-hmm.
feels.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I need to learn more about it. Maybe I need to empathize better. It's an opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think all day, every day, the world is handing you opportunities.
Yeah.
Are your eyes open to see them?
Yeah. We're running out of time, but I read a book. Well, I audiobooked it. I got a jacked up right eye, and it's hard for me to read for like long periods of time. And
Are you going to get
so
it
I
fixed, or are you going to jack up the other one to
no,
even out?
it's unfixable. I've wanted to get it fixed forever. That's why one side of my glasses is like double thick compared to the other one.
Oh,
But
goodness.
so I do a lot of audiobooks, and about a year and a half ago, I finally dug into this book called Man's Search for Meaning
Oh,
by
yes.
Viktor Frankl. You've read it?
Stellar.
Okay. It took me a year to finish it. And it wasn't because I wasn't interested or I was being lazy. It's because as I would listen for maybe 30 seconds and have to pause it or rewind it
Hmm.
because I felt like I was doing it a disservice how potent the words were
Hmm.
and the ideas. I felt that I was doing it a disservice by just continuing on and listening to more without really processing what I had just heard.
Yeah.
It took me a year to finish it,
Yeah.
but he was in a concentration camp. And tell me who's gone through worse things than that. Of course there are worse things. It's possible, but I mean, that's pretty far down there as far as the worst things you could experience as a human being,
Yeah.
especially being there I think he was there for 2 years
It's
and being
not
completely
it's not what would
emaciated.
you would call a light read.
No,
It's
or a light experience for him to say that in the end of the day, he had the opportunity to escape one night and he had started serving as almost like a therapist and an actual doctor to the other guys in his bunkhouse.
Hmm.
And as he's leaving one night to escape with this other guy, he looks down and sees one of his bunkmates look up at him and says, "You're leaving us." And he walks out, puts down his little bag, and walks back in and doesn't leave. And he said, "I'm going to find more meaning here at the service of my fellow bunkmates than I will if I try to escape, which will be a miracle in and of itself if you could escape Auschwitz, especially when you're all emaciated and you've been living on crumbs and pea
Absolutely.
soup." But the fact that he turned around and went back in, that he pursued something difficult because of the meaning he found in it.
Hmm.
It's such a it's such a joke when people wish for an easy life and for easy times and for a cush job and a cush, yeah, everything's cush and everything's easy, no problem, no stress.
Yeah.
I don't know. I hate hearing people talk about that they want a job that's super simple and pays them $1 million, or they want a relationship where they never argue and never go through anything difficult, or they want to
Right.
have a normal birth because who would ever want to go through that? But there's something that happens inside of us that cannot happen without pain and stress and difficulty. There's something inside of us. You would not be the same person if Liam was born just completely normal, daisies and roses and unicorns,
Absolutely not.
everything's great. You would not be the same person right now.
No. Not I mean, not even close. Like, to tie a through line, the we had a moment this past Saturday night, and it was the day before the Acorn debacle. Um when he wanted to take it to bed. But he was just being ornery is the best word, just very obstinate,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a struggle, like getting him to bedtime, into bed, staying in his room. It was a struggle. It was tough.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, once we got into bed, I laid down with him and sang him that song.
Mm-hmm.
And yet again, just this wave of, I'm so grateful I have a 3-year-old. And it sounds so cliche, but I'm so grateful I have a 3-year-old little boy who's so strong-willed and confident in himself that he's going to try to stand up to me to get his way.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be incredible in the world.
Yeah.
Like, we're all just babies who grew up. And he's going to be an incredible adult because
Yeah.
he's
And
got a strong will, right?
when you think about the opposite, a complete pushover is the opposite of a strong-willed kid, is a
Absolutely.
complete pushover that has no backbone.
Yeah.
So it's helping him manage that
Mm-hmm.
strong-willedness throughout his growing up, helping him manage it
Right.
and use it for the right things rather than bullying or whatever you can use it for, that's or pushing back too much against his parents. But it's just, that's why it's, yeah, when parents complain about their kids being strong-willed, I go, well, when your daughter is 17 and being pressured into
Mm.
some kind of very, very suspect situation, and she's strong-willed and kicks a guy right in the balls and runs away,
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather have a strong-willed daughter at that point. So careful what you wish
Absolutely.
for. So, Liam, I need to see that kid soon.
Maybe we'll come to trivia.
Maybe he'll bring his acorn.
Well, last time Liam's a big fan of coming to the brewery with Daddy and his friends, and as long as there's a grilled cheese or a chicken sandwich truck.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the qualification. Anytime you want to hang out, we can go
Mm-hmm.
grab a beer. As long as there's a grilled cheese truck, he'll be just fine.
Well, I'm running trivia tonight at 7:60, so you can come through.
There you go.
There's a taco truck. It's not grilled cheese.
Quesadilla, same thing. It's all good.
Yeah, exactly. That's true.
Hey, I love
Just
you,
a
dude.
tortilla. Dude,
You're
love
great.
you, man. Yeah. And cheers to all you got going on, Mr. Coffee Absolute Encyclopedia at this point. No, Wikipedia is more appropriate for 2023. Ain't nobody
Hey, man.
reading encyclopedias.
Just growing our business and helping other people start theirs. So
Yeah.
that's what it's about.
And doing all your web work and everything. Yeah. Love it. Love all that you're up to. Very creative. Love all our conversations. And
I love
Caleb,
running into you at the grocery store. It's great.
No, remember you're in Minnesota. You don't live here.
Oh, right.
I need
Davidson,
to
that's
interview
farther
guests
than Minnesota.
I need to interview guests that aren't in my own town. But I love it. Dude, I appreciate you being on The Moments That Made Us. It's been great. Caleb White, everybody, and many more adventures to come for you and the Acorn King.
Absolutely.
All right, Caleb. Thanks, man.
All right. Appreciate you. Bye.
Later.